pleasure of inviting another parliamentary colleague of mine and friend within the coalition government, Deputy Leader of the New Zealand First Party, Mr. Fletcher Tabuteau. Mr. Tabuteau is also the Parliamentary Under-Secretary for Foreign Affairs, Disarmament and Arms Control, and Regional Economic Development. In addition, he is the Deputy Chair of the Finance and Expenditure Select Committee and New Zealand First's spokesperson for Commerce, Revenue, Trade, Tourism and Energy, as well as being the party's Associate Finance spokesperson. Mr. Tabuteau has been a member of New Zealand First since the party's inception in 1993 and joined Parliament in 2014. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Fletcher Tabuteau.
Kia ora koutou, tēnā koutou katoa, namaste, welcome. To the High Commissioner, your words were quite powerful, High Commissioner, especially about democracy, and it bears repeating that the relationship between our two countries is vitally important, and I acknowledge your efforts in that. You are a stalwart between our two countries, and I commend you for that. I would rightly must acknowledge the Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, who's doing such a fantabulous job over at the UN at the moment, the Deputy Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Winston Peters, and as was mentioned, I am here today on behalf of the Honourable Shane Jones as the Regional Economic Development Minister. I think Minister Salisa touched on a few points which I would have, so it gives me an opportunity to be a bit more personal and to welcome those of you from India here, the delegation, and speak from my own experience. First of all, I used to be a head of a business school at another polytech. I won't mention it because that would be unfair to our gentleman down the end here. And in that job, I spent many years working with students from India. Helped design postgraduate master's qualifications for the Indian market in business, and so it has been a pleasure to work so closely with Indian youth in Rotorua. But that may sound a bit shallow, but I would add that I'm a Māori boy from a little part of Rotorua, and one of the main family lines in that iwi are called the Khans. And so I think the relationship between India and New Zealand is, as the Minister said, an incredibly long one, but actually it's quite personal for me, and it is part of who I am actually. So I also understand that the delegation was in Rotorua yesterday. That's my hometown, so it goes without saying that you had an incredible experience and a wonderful time. I hope you did some bungee jumping when you got up the top of the Skyline sky rides there, up the top of Mount Nongataha. It's a beautiful part of the world, if I do say so myself, High Commissioner. So I, as mentioned, I have the Under-Secretary Delegation for Foreign Affairs, but it has been a privilege of mine to work closely with the Trade Minister. So I speak not so much on his behalf, but as someone who is also passionate about trade. And as the Minister mentioned, trade between the two nations is quite significant for New Zealand. I think it puts India 12th on our trade statistics, around the same as our tourism numbers actually. And from my point of view, it has been a long journey working on that bilateral relationship. You all know that we're working incredibly hard with the RCEP negotiations, and which presents its own opportunities. And so from this government and from myself, we continue to put huge effort into those conversations and those negotiations. And I commend the Minister on her concluding remarks about investment. New Zealand is a proud nation, and we want to do as much as we can ourselves, but actually that does not preclude good foreign investment being attracted into this country. So I echo the words of the Minister because, as she acknowledged with the example of building and large apartment complexes in particular, we're going to need some help. And then I speak on behalf of the Minister of Forestry, for example, the Minister Shane Jones, who is absolutely determined to ensure that in undertaking our billion trees program over the next 10 years as part of our commitment to climate change, but also our commitment to regional New Zealand, we know that we're going to need foreign investment to accelerate and help with our determined effort, that admirable goal of 1 billion trees over the next 10 years. Look, I'd just like to finish by touching on my other privileged delegation, which is the Under-Secretary of Regional Economic Development. You may not be aware, but New Zealand has this government, coalition government, has committed $3 billion over the next 3 years, and per capita, that is the largest OECD investment in regional economic development in the developed world. It's a large commitment. And so what we see there is an investment in tourism infrastructure, for example. I had the privilege on Monday to step up in my hometown of Rotorua and commit $27.5 million, for example, to the upgrade of our lake waterfront development. I've had the privilege of being in the hometown of our Mayor Meng Foon, and being part of the government's effort to invest into our regions. And so in that simple message to you, I say that this government is deliberately and determinedly unlocking productive industry in our provinces where in the main most of our export value originates. And so we are determined to ensure that in our efforts to engage with the rest of the world, as the Indian Prime Minister has said, as our New Zealand Prime Minister said this morning, multilateral rules-based engagement around the world is paramount for that type of engagement. And New Zealand is committed to that, and we are committed to unlocking New Zealand's full potential through our Regional Economic Development Program. Can I add my voice to the chorus of calls for a direct flight, and add that I now know that there are several businesses in the room who we can talk to directly about that. We have an amazing opportunity to grow our relationship even more. The High Commissioner spoke about a bright future. I endorse his words, and I apologise, I'm going to have to run off the stage and go to the airport right now, but it has been a privilege to say thank you for being here. Good luck in your efforts over today in the summit, and congratulations to all of you for being here. Thank you so much.